When people think of Epstein Files, they usually think about scandal and crime. But from an anti-money laundering point of view, this case tells a much bigger story. It shows how money, power, and weak controls inside the financial system allowed serious crimes to continue for years. This video explains the Epstein Files as a financial and AML failure in very simple terms. So let's understand who was Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a wealthy American financier who claimed to manage money for rich and powerful clients. However, his actual business activities were never clearly explained. He was convicted in 2008 for sex-related crimes, given a very lenient plea deal which raised concerns, arrested again in 2019 for federal sex trafficking charges, found dead in jail in August 2019, officially ruled a suicide but widely questioned. From an AML perspective, this raises a key question: how did a person with a known criminal history continue to access the banking system so easily? Let's understand what is Epstein Files. The Epstein Files are not one document. They are a collection of records released over time, including court documents, victims' testimonies, flight logs, emails and contact books, unsealed court findings from 2023 to 24. KYC plays a very important role for every financial institution, and that's why they must ask who is the customer, what is their source of wealth, and does their financial activity make economic sense? Epstein case red flags were: he moved large amounts of money, his source of wealth was unclear, his financial role lacked transparency. This situation should have triggered enhanced due diligence, not routine treatment. A key AML rule is understanding how money is earned, not just how it moves. In Epstein case, income sources were vague, funds moved through accounts without clear economic justification, and large payments did not align with a transparent business model. Classic AML red flag, which is high-value customer plus unclear business purposes. Not just humans, but reputed banks were also involved, like JP Morgan Chase and Deutsche Bank, where Epstein was a client for many years. JP Morgan Chase Bank continued relationship despite warning signs and faced civil litigation for alleged compliance failures. Deutsche Bank, where Epstein held accounts after leaving JP Morgan Chase Bank, and continued banking relationship after his prior conviction. The bank later faced regulatory penalties for AML control weaknesses. These were compliance and oversight failures, not judgments on criminal guilt of banks, but did highlight systemic AML gaps. A key AML rule is understanding how money is earned, not just how it moves. In Epstein case, income sources were vague, funds moved through accounts without clear economic justification, and large payments did not align with a transparent business model, which is a classic example of AML red flag, high-value customer with unclear business purpose. Let's understand layering and complex structure in Epstein file case. Layering is the stage of money laundering where the trail is hidden. In the Epstein file, we see multiple accounts, trusts and legal entities, payments routed through intermediaries. This complexity made it difficult to track the true purpose of transactions. The lesson: complex structures often hide risk, they don't reduce it. AML laws require banks to file suspicious activity reports when behavior does not match customers' profile, lacks economic logic, and show repetitive, unusual patterns. The Epstein files suggest repeated payments, questionable descriptions like services, and long-term patterns that should have raised alerts. If this were a normal customer, would this activity look acceptable? Let's understand the role of PEP, politically exposed person, in Epstein file. Epstein was connected to politicians, royalty, and business elites. Some names appear in flight logs and testimonies. Important AML rule says that PEPs and their close associates require enhanced monitoring, but in practice, power often reduces scrutiny, which increases risk. Of course, association is not equal to guilty, but association is equal to higher AML risk. PEP risk is not limited to individuals, but extends to their entire network. When power, wealth, and influence combine, transparency often decreases and blind spots emerge in financial systems. This is why AML frameworks focus not only on illegal acts but on power-driven opacity and excess. Where questioning becomes difficult, risk tends to be the highest. Let's understand that why this case matters for AML professionals. This case shows us that AML is not just about drugs or terrorism. Financial system can indirectly enable human trafficking. Compliance failures can cause real human harm. AML is not just a regulatory requirement, it's an ethical responsibility. The Epstein file shows us that money laundering doesn't always look suspicious on the surface. Sometimes it looks respectable, influential, and untouchable. As AML professionals, our duty is not to trust status or wealth, but to follow risk, evidence, and control frameworks consistently.